Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erica. We are on part 2 of our English paper piecing series. So in part 1 of this series, we talked about all of my favorite supplies and things you're going to need to get started with English paper piecing. Today we're going to talk about fabric. This is probably the most fun part because you get to pick the vibe of your quilt. There's so much fun fabric to choose from. I'm going to talk about a couple different styles. We're also going to talk about fussy cutting. I'm going to show you how I cut out my pieces and how I baste them and get ready to go for my projects. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So let's talk about fabric really quickly. So there's a lot of different kind of fabric out there. And as you'll notice, some are better for fussy cutting, some are better for just overall coverage. And so I have a few different fabrics here on my table today. You don't necessarily need a lot of fabric to do EPP. It's great to go through your scraps and blend and mix and match. Now some of these prints are perfect for fussy cutting. As you can see, they've got these cute little designs on them, and you can use these acrylic rulers to pick out your designs and make sure that what you want to show through on your quilt shows through. So for example, you could fussy cut out that little house or these trees or this little girl. She's super cute, and you can just use these rulers to make sure that whatever you're seeing through your ruler is going to be what's showing up on your piece once you baste it. Tula Pink is a great inspiration for fussy cutting. She always has really big, bold designs in her fabrics, and it makes it really easy to pick out accent features and fussy cut. Now you could either do this whole sewing machine or you could just do one of these little flowers. Depends on how big your piece is, but either way, that's a great way to bring some really cool colors and dimension and interest into your quilt projects. So I actually purchased quite a bit of this fabric. I think I'm going to use either this giant sewing machine. I might also use it for some backing. Now fabrics like this one are just kind of an overall print, and it won't matter what portion of this fabric you cut out. So if you just want, say, a red border around something, you can turn this template any way you want on this piece of fabric, and it's not actually going to change the look necessarily of that piece. It's just not super standout-ish, it's just a small overall print. But fussy cutting is a great way to make your quilts look interesting and give them a little bit more character and texture and color. So just pick fabric that is something you enjoy, colors that you like, that go together and complement each other, and then decide whether or not you want the overall prints or you want something that can be fussy cut depending on what the end goal of your project is. Either of these types of fabrics are perfect for EPP projects. So I picked these fabrics right here. These are the Pam Kitty Morning fabrics, and you just want to pick a fabric line or fabric pieces that complement one another. And of course, if you pick an entire line of fabric that was meant to go together, then it kind of takes all of the guesswork out of it for you. So if you're new at quilting or English paper piecing or any smaller projects like bags and things, just pick fabric that is already together in a line and you'll know that it all goes together, and then you don't have to do a whole lot of thinking. Something like a fat eighth bundle would be perfect for this as well. These are already pre-put together for you. The designer did all of the hard color work for you, and so it just makes it really nice and easy, and then you have a fun variety of fabrics that you can choose from that are just already ready to go. So let's kind of look at some of my fabrics here. Now I have some like this particular print right here. There's nothing super standouty about it, no matter how I cut this fabric, and this is a scrap. No matter how I cut my shape on here, it's not going to matter. You're going to get the same print no matter what. And so this is just kind of what I like to refer to as, these are just smaller prints, and they're kind of can just go anywhere. You don't have to fussy cut them or anything like that. So that's that one. Another fabric would be something more like this, where you may want to fussy cut. And all that fussy cutting means is that you are deciding, instead of, say, I need a little square from this end, instead of taking my piece and just putting it right up next to the end here and cutting and just maximizing my fabric, I can say, you know what, I actually really want this rose in there, and you can put your template right on top of that rose, kind of get it however you want it centered on there, and then cut around that, and then you've got that lovely rose pattern filling up your entire shape. So you can cut it one of two ways. You can do these prints where it doesn't matter which way you can cut them, or you can do ones that specifically have specific designs on them that you're really wanting to target and you want to show in your finished product. And I'll kind of show you how I do that as well. I've got a couple pieces cut here already, and you can see that I didn't really fussy cut either one of them. I just went ahead. This was, I think, a leftover piece, and I even have some salvage on here. And one of the cool things about EPP is that as long as it gets folded over the back of your paper, you can have that selvage on there if you want. I also don't press my fabric. I know a lot of people ask if you press your fabric first. I don't, because by the time we put this on our paper, all of these creases will go away and it just won't matter. So why waste the time pressing my fabric first? I'm going to show you some that I just worked on, and I needed to make sets of these, and I think I needed 2 of each color is what I decided. So I just picked 2 reds that were different that I thought went together okay, and I went ahead and sewed those together, and then these white ones are kind of my border that needs to go around them. But as you can see, they still match, but they're all different. This is the row we're working on right here. Say you want that all to be the exact same color. You could cut all of those out of the same fabric, and then they would all match all the way around, and you'd really kind of change the look of your project. So here are a couple more. I've just got some green ones. I think I ran out of blue. Oh, my blue faded over to there. So I have 1 green, and these will kind of go next to each other like this. I've got some blues, and then my blues are going into my darker blues. And so when I was cutting, I just cut 4 of each colorway, and then when I basted them, I can just sew them all together and know they're all going to go together. So that's kind of how I choose my fabrics. Let's talk about how to cut your fabric. Now, of course, you can get yourself a handy pair of scissors. These are Ginger scissors. They are my favorite scissors. Anyone in the house knows that they are not to touch these scissors. And you can hand cut out your fabrics. You can also use a rotary trimmer. This is my preferred method just because I feel like it's faster, but if I were traveling and I needed to cut some fabric out, then I would definitely go ahead and go with the scissors because they're easier to travel with. But you can also bring this little rotating cutting mat with you and cut. I've cut in my car before on this, so you know, you do whatever works for you. Now, I did show this in my tools video, and this rotating cutting mat is probably one of my favorite things because it makes it so easy. So let's go ahead and just take a look at some of our fabric here, and let's decide what we want to cut out. So let's say I need one of these smaller ones, and I did go ahead and purchase the templates like I showed in my first video. And this template is for this paper piece. And so her templates, these are Tula Pink templates. They have the 3/8 of an inch seam around the outside of them. I actually really prefer that because it gives me a little more fabric to work with than a 1/4 of an inch seam around, but I know people who prefer the 1/4 of an inch seam. But I know, let's say I need to make, say, 10 of those. Now, depending on if you're fussy cutting or not, if I'm not, I will actually take this fabric and accordion it like so, and just make sure that I can fit this on, make sure it's nice and flat. I can fit this on, and I will actually cut around all of these at one time. Now, you can do one of 2 things. You can draw a line around here and then use your scissors to cut them out, or you can take your rotary trimmer and just cut around all of those at once. And this makes it really easy because you can cut, 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 turn it, cut, cut, cut. Okay, and so that's what I would do if I were using, say, one of these fabrics where I'm not fussy cutting anything. They're all going to be the same regardless, and I would just go ahead and do it that way. And I don't know if that's the right or wrong way to do it, but if I'm being lazy and I need a bunch of pieces cut out, that's what I do. If I want a fussy cut, then I'm obviously just going to lay it out one at a time, and I don't exactly have enough fabric to get this one center rose there, but I might be able to get these right here. And one of the things I love about these templates is that I can see through them, so I can see that I'm getting my rows in there. This one's even a little bit off center. It might be better to try and center this rose. And then I can cut. Sorry, my rotary, I think I need a new rotary blade. And then I can just rotate this whole thing and keep cutting. And then we've got our little fussy cut flower right here in the middle, and then we can go ahead and baste that. And I will show you how to baste as well. But one thing I will say about these is that they're a little bit slippery. And so sometimes when I'm cutting, especially if I'm doing a bunch and I do this, if my finger's on here too hard, I'll move my template a little bit. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I would recommend getting some of those little tacky dots that you can put on the back to help keep these from sliding because they are definitely slippery. So now that we have our piece cut out, let's talk about basting. So there's two different ways to baste. You can either stitch baste it using thread and needle. I don't particularly like to do that, so I'm not going to show you how to do that today. I like to glue baste. Glue basting is super fast, it's super easy, and I kind of enjoy the process actually. It's sort of therapeutic and it's really easy to do while you're, say, watching a movie or something like that. The other thing you can do if you don't have the templates or you don't want to spend the money on the templates is you can take your piece, your paper piece, and you can just put it on your fabric here. And you can even just pick it up. I would probably kind of line it up, you know, hold it or whatever. And you can just pick it up and just roughly chop around it. And this doesn't need to be perfect. I'm not even going to cut that side. Okay. So here is our rough cut piece and here is our perfect template fussy cut piece, okay? Now I could have fussy cut this one too if I wanted to, I just didn't bother. So don't let that sway your decision here. But here is my piece and I'm just gonna put them right side down. I'm not gonna iron or anything like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take my template and put it on both of them. And you can definitely see now this one's obviously the messier of the two. And we're gonna go ahead and glue baste. So to glue baste, I'm just going to put up a little bit of glue so that I have enough to work with. I'm gonna run my glue a little bit on the fabric, down this edge, and then a little bit on the fabric. You want to avoid getting the glue right on the very edge because that's where you're going to be stitching, and if there's glue there, then you're going to have a hard time stitching through that, and nobody likes that. We want this to be fun and easy. So I'm just going to take my stick here, and I'm going to put a little bit on the fabric that way, and then I'm going to draw right on my line, and there we go. And then I'm just holding it down, just going to, with my fingers, just press my fabric in this way. Okay? And that's done. And I like to glue baste on this this rotating mat as well because it just keeps rotating and makes it easier. So now I'm going to do the same thing. So again, I'm going to start on that edge, go down, and just fold it up. And I'm going to turn it again. Baste along that edge. And I kind of like to push, I don't know, I'm right-handed, so I'm kind of pushing to the side. I like to push, I don't pull down usually. For some reason, I find that doesn't work as well. And I don't want to go off screen here, so. Again, I'm going to baste that. That one actually got a little bit more glue on there than I normally would have. And then this last one. And one of the reasons I do get it onto the fabric a little bit right there is so that these corners stay down. If you don't get it on the fabric, then those corners will kind of pop up when you're basting, okay? So here is our finished piece. As you can see, it's perfect. Now, one of the things that I did notice when I first started doing this is every now and then, and it's really subtle, but there'll be like it almost seems like this edge is just slightly curved just a little bit. And usually that just means you didn't get your corner down good enough. And so it's not a big deal. You can just pick it off, maybe put a little more glue if you need to, and push it back down and get it perfect. So this stuff is totally repositionable. It's not the end of the world if you get it on there crooked or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and set that one aside, and then we're going to do this one. And I'm just going to center my piece right here as good as I possibly can. And again, I'm going to just run the glue right along that edge. And I just do it really fast. I was kind of slowing down on that first piece so you could kind of see. But this is about how fast I go. And yes, I did get some on my mat. Sometimes that happens, but I just wipe it off when I'm done. And when I'm doing this, I will push up on the corners first and then the middle. That way it just gets those corners, I feel like, nice and tight. But let's go ahead and take a look now at our pieces. And so there you can see they both turned out perfectly, no matter whether I rough cut them or perfect cut them. The only difference is I fussy cut this one, but otherwise you could do that with scissors too. So you don't need to have these templates. I just like them, and I think it makes it a lot faster, especially if you're cutting several layers at once. And then you can just make a ton of these, just hang out one night watching TV or a movie, make a ton of them, stack them all up. You could keep them in your template case so they're ready to go, or I of course keep them in my travel case over here. This is my little pouch that I take with me everywhere. So here is a pile that I made the other night when I was just sitting down, and I need all these little kind of neutral toned ones to go in between some of my other pieces. And so I just sat down and made a ton of them. And then I will just take these and either store them in my box here, or I'll put them in this so that they're ready to go. And then when I go to sit down, I can just grab this. I don't have to look around, figure out what I'm doing. I have it all right here in my little pouch, and I can just sit down and get to sewing. Now, I don't have any examples of this, but there are ways, for example, if this was going around the outside, you know, if you were doing something like this and these were going around the outside, you could fussy cut so each one had one of these flowers in it, and that would just look so cute all the way around and be a really cool little border. So there's a lot of things that you can do for those. On this little mini one that I did when I first started, I cut out this little girl so she was kind of in the middle. The rest of the ones I didn't worry about. So you can really kind of do whatever you want with this and make things really super cool. I highly recommend checking out Tula Pink's video on how to cut your fabric. She has some really cool tips on how to match up striped fabric. She is like the master at doing that, so I'm not even going to try. So definitely go and check out that video. So that's going to be it for part 2 of our series. In part 3, I'm going to show you how I sew my pieces together. I have a few tips and tricks to make it a little bit easier on you, and so I'll be sharing that in part 3. But if you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to thumbs up and subscribe, and you can also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming projects. So thank you for joining me for today's video, and I will see you next time.